Welcome back to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we do another deep dive into Tubi. And with that, let's get to the list.
Never leave your loved ones alone. You should know that by now.
Brimstone is a 2016 Western psychological horror movie. Directed by Martin Koolhoven, it stars Dakota Fanning, Guy Pearce, and Kit Harington. A frontier woman turns fugitive when she is wrongly accused of a crime she didn't commit and is hunted by a vengeful preacher.
Jesus is the shepherd who protects you from those wolves. And I am his dog. The sheepdog that get the lambs back on track when they stray off the path. And some of you have strayed, haven't you?
So this was a first time watch this week for me, and I'm kind of blown away that I haven't heard of this movie before this, but at the same time, I get it. I get why this movie isn't more popular, because this movie is dark. It is not a fun movie. It is not a happy ending kind of film by any means. This is a dark, tragic, just brutally savage film. It makes a lot of choices and does a lot of things that is just not stuff you normally see. I think it's ballsy and brave, but it's also not a fun thing to watch. So this is a big warning from me to you. If you're someone that cannot deal with, some more upsetting type of things, especially to do with SA and just dramatic things to do with children and women and just brutal things like that, then this is one you probably should skip. But if you're someone that can handle that, especially when it's part of a well done story and it just fits into the whole narrative, then this movie is definitely a can't miss because it's extremely well done. Guy Pearce is just terrifying in this role. It's one of the most dark, demented characters I've seen him play, and he's played a few doozies in the past. Dakota Fanning is also brilliant in this. It's just a really well written, well put together movie, but like I said, it's not a fun watch. It's dark and twisted and absolutely fucked up. But it's a captivating, suspenseful, dramatic movie that I highly, highly recommend.
I can't wait to kill her.
All Eyes is a 2022 dark comedy horror movie. Written and directed by the Greenlee brothers, it stars Jasper Hammer, Ben Hall, and Danielle Yvonne Ploger. The story's about a disgraced podcaster who interviews an eccentric farmer who claims to have a monster living in the woods near his home.
Look, I don't like you, but my wife really did. Because of that, and only that, I think it's fitting that you be the one to tell my story.
This is a fun one. After talking about a movie as dark and demented as Brimstone, I wanted to follow it up with one that's just a lot of fun, and this one fits that bill so well. But it also is full of action and creepy elements, and it takes you in some interesting directions because the first half kind of starts off one way, and then it makes a dramatic change and flips and turns into something totally different, and then flips and twists and changes again. It's well written with great character development, dialogue that's a lot of fun and entertaining, as well as interesting, but it also throws in drama, suspense, atmosphere, as well as some emotional layers. This is just a really interesting one that's flown under the radar, and you just don't hear enough people talking about it. But if you're looking for a ride, something to grab some popcorn and have a good time with, this is a fantastic pick.
You do realize, Stephen, we're in this situation because of you.
The Killing of a Sacred Deer is a 2017 psychological thriller. Co-written and directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, it stars Colin Farrell, Nicole Kidman, and Barry Keoghan. A charismatic surgeon is forced to make an unthinkable sacrifice after his life starts to fall apart when the behavior of a teenage boy he has taken under his wing turns sinister.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about Bod.
It's nothing serious.
No, it is.
Like we're the stars of the human race.
Talk about bizarre. This is a weird one. It's an A24 movie, so that right there should let you know it's going to be artsy and and a bit of a slow burn, but it is also very, very strange. Just the mood, the way everybody talks, it's like stripped of emotion. Everybody in this just kind of walks around acting like emotion is just not in the picture, which is deliberate. And I think some people watching this might think that people aren't giving great performances here, because they're just not conveying emotions like normal film. But that's kind of part of what the point of this movie is. This is a film that's very symbolic and has a lot of layers to it. It's trying to say something. It's a work of art. And that is just not for everyone. So I'm warning you right now, this just might not be for you. This was another first time watch for me. I've heard of this movie for many years, but just for whatever reason, never got around to checking it out until now. And I'm still mulling it over in my mind. It's one of those movies that just kind of gets under your skin and sticks with you long after. Because I'm just still trying to decipher what the message is, what this is trying to say, what the symbolism exactly means. I have my own theories on it, but it's one of those that everybody is going to kind of have a different take on it and different idea of what it means. But I think it's incredibly well done. It's well shot and directed. Like I said though, it's not going to be for everyone. But if you enjoy dramatic, slow burn, artsy movies that just get under your skin with the dread and the anxiety of it all, this is one you should absolutely add to your list.
This is the best veal I have ever tasted.
This is not veal.
Feed Me is a 2022 dark comedy horror movie, written and directed by Adam Leader and Richard Oakes. It stars Neil Ward, Christopher Mulvin, and Hannah Al-Rashid. Following the death of his wife, a broken man spirals into an abyss of depression and finds himself in the home of a deranged cannibal who convinces him to take his own life in the most horrific way imaginable.
So what are you saying? Consensual human consumption. So, you want to eat me? That is exactly what I'm saying.
So this is not the first time I've talked about this on the channel. I'm a big fan of this little movie because it is really well done and it's also very unique. And when I've talked about it in the past, a lot of you have mentioned that it's based on real life events. There are some similar things that have happened out there, different stories about cannibalism and things like that. But this is kind of inspired by that a little bit, but I would definitely not say it's based on that because this really does its own thing. And it's dark and twisted and demented. It gets graphic and brutal and gory, but it's also extremely funny, but in a macabre, twisted, uncomfortable kind of way. And so much of what makes this movie work so well is the performance of Neil Ward. He is just incredible in this. He's funny in a very uncomfortable way, but also really scary at times. I mean, the way he flips a switch in his personality in this is truly haunting. He just feels like a real threat, like an absolute psychopath. But the reason I say this movie is unique is just the tone of it, because as dark and twisted and demented as this movie gets, it also, like I said, is very, very funny, like genuinely funny. But that never takes away from how uncomfortable you feel throughout this movie. And it's pretty wild because it's been out for quite a while here in the States, but it just was released in the UK. So if any of you guys are UK viewers out there, it is now available in your country. And I think it's absolutely a must watch if you're a fan of independent horror / comedies. So definitely do yourself a favor and put this one on your list.
How long have we been on this rock? 5 weeks? 2 days? Help me to recollect.
The Lighthouse is a 2019 horror movie, co-written and directed by Robert Eggers. It stars Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. Two lighthouse keepers try to maintain their sanity while living on a remote and mysterious New England island in the 1890s.
What's a timberman want with being a wickie?
Just looking to earn a living, just like any man. Starting new.
On the run.
Okay, so it's confession time again. As weird as it is, I've never fully seen this movie. I've seen parts of it at times for different reasons. I've tried to watch it, but just for whatever reason, I've just never been able to watch it from beginning to end without any interruptions until now. And so this week I sat down and said, you know what? I'm gonna make sure I watch the entire movie from beginning to end without pausing it, without stopping it, so I can fully grasp this entire thing. And I loved it, but I am a big fan of A24. I love the weird, artsy, slow burn stuff. And this is firmly in that category because it's not exactly a true blue horror movie, at least not in the criteria that so many of you go by. But in my opinion, this is absolutely a horror movie because it gets haunting, it's disturbing, it's uncomfortable the entire time. It just feels like it continues to build that dread throughout the movie, and you're just constantly waiting to see what ultimately is going to happen. And it just envelops you like a fog with this dread and anxiety. But what really makes this movie work, even though there's tons of atmosphere and it looks incredible and all of that, what really makes it work is just the performances from these two. Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe are just incredible in this. They're so full of character and personality, and just watching the two of them go at each other, arguing and this and that, and then when they get drunk and they go back and forth from being like, you're my best friend, to I hate you and want to kill you, it's just great. No matter what, I now completely get what the buzz about this was. I get why this movie is talked about so glowingly by so many people, because as much as I've been able to appreciate it for years now, because I have seen a lot of it, I think I've probably seen basically the whole movie, but just in different chunks. Being able to watch the whole thing now with no interruptions, it just really has a magic to it. It just feels wet the entire time. It just feels like you're on this island. There's something about it being void of color and black and white to me as well that just kind of makes it feel even more like you're there, because your imagination just adds the color and adds the layers. And so for me, it just worked even on another level because of that. So to sum it up, I think this really is a work of horror art. And if you've never seen it for whatever reason, do yourself a favor and check it out.
Please leave. Please leave. Please leave. Please leave.
Catacombs is a 2007 horror movie, directed by Tom Coker and David Elliott. It stars Shannon Sossamon, Sandy Dragoy, and Pink. Victoria travels to Paris to visit her sister and goes to a rave in the catacombs under the city on her first night. The remains of over 6 million people are there, as well as something evil lurking in the tunnels.
Is this legal? There's nothing about this that's legal.
I'm really surprised at this one. It really holds up. It's actually a much better movie than you would expect it to be, because a lot of the early 2000s horror movies are just kind of cheesy and not that well written. But this is surprisingly well put together. It has some really interesting twists and turns and does a lot of things you're not going to really see coming. It's mysterious and moody, as well as very creepy. But it's not anything to overthink. It's just a good time, a popcorn kind of horror movie. But if it's one you've never seen, I think you should definitely check it out.
Homes are getting control over gullible women.
Honeydew is a 2020 horror movie, written and directed by Deborah O. Milbourne. It stars Sawyer Spielberg, Melon Barr, and Barbara Kingsley. Strange cravings and hallucinations befall a young couple after seeking shelter in the home of an aging farmer and her peculiar son, after they become stranded in the middle of nowhere.
You're on my property.
Do you know anything that might be open this way? Hi. We were just wondering if we could borrow your phone.
This is one of my favorite hidden gem indie horror movies to recommend, because very few people have seen this. It is a small movie, it's not a big production kind of thing at all, so I get why it hasn't had more buzz. But if you're a fan of independent horror like I am, I think this is one you'll really dig. It's creepy, it's disturbing, it's really uncomfortable, and takes some bizarre twists and turns throughout the entire movie, and you're just kind of always feeling off kilter, never never quite sure what's gonna happen next. But it's grim and weird with some surprises along the way. I think it's a fantastic little gem and one you should definitely check out.
It was you who made me what I am!
Depraved is a 2019 horror movie, written and directed by Larry Fessenden. It stars David Call, Alex Bro, and Joshua Leonard. A disillusioned surgeon suffering from PTSD makes a man out of body parts and brings him back to life in his Brooklyn loft.
While others are dealing with molecular science, DNA, petri dishes, we're in here dealing with blood and guts, extreme sports of biology.
Okay, so this is basically Frankenstein. It does basically tell that same story. But what makes it interesting is the few little twists and turns that it does take. It's also the way that it's shot. This is a small budget, independent movie, but the way it does things, the way it looks, just the way that it's shot, it's uncomfortable. The camera doesn't shy away from gory things or what you're expecting to see. A lot of dead body parts being, sewn together, things like that. It's done really, really well, especially for something so small. But the performances by this cast and the way that it ties this kind of age-old story, this classic story, but into our modern world, I think is really interesting and really well done. But with that being said, this is not a game changer. This is a very small movie. But if you're a fan like I am of independent horror and watching different filmmakers and the way that they translate these classic stories into our modern world and just have a different way of looking at it and a different spin, then I think this is one you'll be entertained by. So absolutely put it on your list. The Invitation is a 2015 horror movie. Directed by Karen Kusuma, it stars Logan Marshall Green, Mikkel Hausman, and John Carroll Lynch. While attending a dinner party at his former house, a man starts to believe that his ex-wife and her new husband have a sinister plan for their guest.
Bars on the windows and no?
Security. Safer.
You've been acting so suspicious of our hospitality.
This is another one that I think is really underrated because it's so creepy and mysterious, but also it starts out really awkward and uncomfortable because the story is just really interesting where you have this guy, and it's something that I've kind of personally felt from time to time, but you have this guy who's at his former house where his ex-wife is now living with her husband. And just the idea of that right there feels uncomfortable. And so the way it all plays out is really organic and feels real. And like I said, it's something that I've personally experienced, so it made me feel even more uncomfortable. But then it takes a twist and starts to get really dark and mysterious, and things just start happening, and it ramps up little by little and keeps you guessing, makes you wonder if the character is just kind of making up stuff in his head or if things are really happening. The dialogue is compelling. The characters are well fleshed out. It's interesting. Everyone has a great performance in this. I think this is a really well done movie that definitely deserves more love than it gets, and one you should absolutely check out.
Have you ever heard of body modification?
American Mary is a 2012 Canadian body horror movie, written and directed by Jen and Sylvia Saska. It stars Catherine Isabel, Antonio Cupo, and Tristan Risk. The allure of easy money sends a medical student into the world of underground surgeries.
Follow me.
What do I have to do?
Yeah, we prefer if Rat was not to die tonight.
I personally think this is a movie that really suffers from a bad title. It just sounds generic, and it just does not scream interesting, unique, or anything that makes most people want to see it. And it's a real tragedy because honestly, this is a really good little movie. I mean, for one, Catherine Isabel is just amazing in this. She's gorgeous, but she's really just compelling. You can't take your eyes off of this performance, but it also gets really twisted and has a great look about it. Just the way that it's shot, the way you know, the sets, the props, the way things are put together. It has this sexy yet disturbing quality about it. And I really appreciate how it pushes the boundaries and how it just continues to go down this rabbit hole and makes you more and more uncomfortable and keep wondering how far are they gonna take it. I just think that this movie is so much better than I think most people would expect it to be, including myself, because I know I skipped this one for quite a while until a few years ago when I finally gave it a shot. And I was so glad that I did, because this movie is bloody and just fun. But it's not anything super serious. It's definitely not anything to pick apart. It's just a good time kind of horror movie. One that I think is perfect for this weekend. So do yourself a favor, pick one of the movies off of this list, grab your popcorn and your candy, and enjoy! But that's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for checking this out. If you enjoyed this, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and ding that little bell, because that is the best way to keep track of this channel. And when I post videos like this, and I post videos like this every single week, I also want to give a huge, massive, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members over here. You guys absolutely mean the world to me. And if you would like to help support this channel over on Patreon, there's a link down in the description. Or if you want to become a channel member and help support the channel over here, there's a button right down there that says join. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember, guys, horror can be fun. If you enjoyed this, click right here to watch a list of my 10 absolute favorite overlooked hidden gem horror movies. And I'll see you guys next time.